Welcome to the very first episode of Cyber Stories Unlocked. I couldn't be more excited to kick off this journey with all of you. For our debut episode, I'm thrilled to introduce a guest whose career story is as unique as it is inspiring. From attending legendary conferences like Black Hat and DEF CON in Las Vegas to contributing to a global cybersecurity operations center, his experience speaks volumes. Oh, and did I mention he spent 10 years as a chef before making the leap into cybersecurity? Talk about unique blend of skills. Now, based in Moreton, a town close to Liverpool in the UK, he's continuing to make waves in the industry, and I can't think of a better guest to launch this podcast with. We'll be diving into his incredible journey, the lessons he's learned, and his advice for anyone looking to carve out their own path in cybersecurity. An ex-colleague of mine and a friend of mine, please join me and welcome Ivan Pitton. Welcome to the show, Ivan. How are you going?
Hi, Rosario. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm doing good. Excited to be on your podcast.
No, the honor is mine, by the way. So, Ivan, many people find the world of cybersecurity fascinating these days, but it's not always clear how to get started. Could you share a little bit about your journey, and which is incredible, by the way. I'm a truly admirer. And
Thank
what initially got you interested in the field, please?
Right. Well, thank you. First of all, it's nice to be appreciated. Number one thing that really kind of made me go for cybersecurity was I had a bit of an experience when I was much younger. I mean, my very early 20s, late teens on the computer that I'll get into in a minute. But overall, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. I was always the guy that, I pulled apart my toys. How does this remote control car work? How does this work? And growing up, my family, we weren't very well up. So I didn't actually have a computer till much, much later, or even seen one actually in my life to a
Oh,
point. And then when I first came to New Zealand, that's really where I friends had computers, people I met had computers. I was like, wow, you can do all these amazing things like play music and rip CDs and what's an MP3?
yeah.
And I learned a lot about just computers in general, gaming. Oh my God, you can play a game. I think the first game I ever played on a computer, actual PC was, I believe, Need for Speed was the first one that came out. And I was just fascinated by the functionality and I needed to know how things worked. So that's kind of what kind of got me into it all. Now we fast forward a few years later, and basically I just woke up one day to my computer being infected. Like honestly, I cannot remember exactly what I've done before, but I just know I was trying to learn same stuff, just browsing the internet. It was brand new or newish. It was early 2000s. For me, it was
Wow.
brand new. You click here, you do that, you click there. I went to sleep, and I woke up. Uh, my desktop was actually full of dialers. Back then, we had the dial-up connection, so there would be a lot of little programs that will dial to a country, and that's how they'll make their money because they charge you for the call, or as well as there was a really, really obscene picture of an underage girl on my desktop as a background.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, so that was my shock. I would have to say, I was like, "What has happened here? This is obviously not what I was doing. No clue how this all happened. Luckily for me at the time,
Hmm.
there was a Microsoft certified systems engineer living with me. It was my flatmate at the time. He just jumped in and went, wipe, wipe. It doesn't matter. I'm like, just wipe, delete, reformat, let's install this. He asked me, what did you do? And I was like, I have no clue what happened. I must have
Wow.
downloaded something or clicked on a link or went to a site that I shouldn't have been on. And obviously it infected the machine. And by the time I woke up, they completely owned it because I couldn't do anything with the machine. I couldn't delete it, the picture, I couldn't change the settings. I couldn't, yeah. And the Internet Explorer, which was I think the only Explorer back then, browser, had the same picture as a homepage. So yeah, it was well and properly infected. And that's kind of what prompted me to start learning about security a little bit, just kind of getting into it, reading about computers, how does it all work, and understanding how machines work, right? And that's
Yep.
that's the basis of my step into cybersecurity, I guess. So if I was to summarize it, the number one, one of the ways that worked for me, I suppose, to getting into cybersecurity was really knowing how computers work, how networks work, how things function in that space. You have to have love for it. You have to have passion for it. Like any other work, I suppose. If you don't love
Yeah.
what you do, if you don't like it, it's not going to be what you want it to be.
I couldn't agree anymore. Yes.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you're in the industry yourself, so I'm sure you understand and appreciate that sentiment. But yeah, that's what got me interested in the field initially. Like, how does this happen? It was horrific. Like, it was just a shock to the system because I didn't know there were such things. You hear about them, but it's on the news. It's like when you hear something bad happen somewhere, it happens elsewhere, not to me, not here. Um, and that was my eye-opening moment. Yeah, so.
Wow, what a story. So would you say curiosity was a key factor for you to make the decision to join the cybersecurity industry?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
I couldn't just like not look into it because obviously it was something what I've done, and I wanted to know what is it that I've done. What was it? The root cause. So that was my first root cause
Yeah.
analysis, I suppose.
Yeah. Wow.
I don't remember. I don't think I ever found out. Was it the site? Was it the software I installed or downloaded or something? I don't remember. It's been 24-ish years, 22. It's been a
Wow.
while.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
Different times as well.
oh yeah, completely.
Yeah.
You couldn't use your phone at the time, at the same time you wanted to use the internet. So yeah, different
That's
times.
true. Yeah. A bit unlucky there that you couldn't find or remember, to work out the root cause on the event, but sometimes it is, like I said, different times, different visibility as well. And from what you're telling me, this sounds like a whole new domain, a new world that you were exploring. So, was there a moment that you remember that make you finalize your decision?
Yeah, so in full honesty, pardon me, not everyone knows this. So when I first, obviously, you mentioned it earlier, I was a chef for 10 years, and I can put my hand on my heart and die in peace after I say this. I hated every second of it. So, um, going into the kitchen just in the morning after working 16-hour shifts, I remember doing in 5 days 90.5 hours in the kitchen. So that's 90.5 in 5 days. And after that, like it doesn't matter. Even if you love something, you'll be like, all right, yeah, I need a bit of a change, you know.
Yeah,
You can't even
absolutely.
drink water that much. So um, the point is, I needed a change. I needed a
Yeah.
change, and it needed to happen from the root up. I couldn't go on like that anymore. Things got bad. I couldn't like pay for car insurance or what's in UK known as the MOT or WOF in New Zealand. Um,
Yes.
yeah, I couldn't even pay for that, and the police stopped me, and they gave me $350 fine. Cause of privilege and so on speech, and I just broke down. Basically, that was my moment when I decided something needs to change. And basically started researching what
Hmm.
what can I study? Can I study? Because I was already 30 something years old. Um, and nowhere did cybersecurity actually pop up. There was no point in which I was like, oh yeah, cybersecurity. My friend Goran, my best friend actually, he was a network engineer at the time, network/systems engineer, and worked for a company. And I just loved what that type of work enabled him to do, which was, be free on the weekends, which I haven't experienced since I started working full stop because I was always a chef. Being free for public holidays, getting paid enough to actually live and pay for your bills and just, not have to worry if you're going to have enough fuel in your car and so on. And it just kind of inspired me to at least look into it, which is what I've done. And I was like, yeah, I can be a network engineer, I can be a systems engineer. I think I can understand this. But I doubted my mental capacity, to be honest, at the time.
Yeah.
And then a thing popped up on the internet that really kind of made me chase it. And it was a quote from my gym I went to at the time, and it said, "The time will go by regardless of what you do with it, but it's what you do with that time that will change the outcome." And that was it. I just like, all right, that's me. I'm going to uni, and I started studying. The first year, I'm not sure if you recall, because we went to the same uni, so the
Yes.
first year is kind of everything. There's no real direction. Kind of just, this is
Fundamentals.
everything. You take a pick, really what you want in the second year, right?
Yeah.
So in the first years when our lovely teacher Dilla just dropped a bomb out of nowhere saying, "Why don't you just study cybersecurity?" And I went, "What is that?" that was a true story. So I didn't even know the term. I knew,
Wow.
obviously about hacking and I knew about security, but the actual term was new. I think this was 2012. Um, and I was like, okay. Didn't even like take it that seriously. But then I started looking into it and I was like, okay, wow, this is actually really cool. This is kind of just connected to what happened the first time on my computer with everything that needed to happen. So that was really the moment that I kind of, while I was already studying, that I changed my, I suppose you can call it, direction of mind from the original systems engineer/network engineer to cybersecurity, because you kind of needed to know everything to do cybersecurity. And I was like, yeah, looks like a bigger challenge. I'll take this on.
I see. So during your first year of studying for your bachelor's, coming from a lecturer gave you the final little push to specialize in cybersecurity, along with the influence of the very unfortunate event from your past, right? Usually, when you go to university, people think that you will have to have a plan, but it's okay if you don't, because as you, Ivan, you you could still make new decisions in your career. And you're living proof that career switching in your 30s is absolutely possible. I truly believe there is no age limit for taking on new challenges, and learning never stops, especially in a field like technology, which is constantly evolving.
Yeah, honestly, it's never too late, but the there has to be certain criteria that you need to meet. Like I said, you have to love what you do, passion
Yeah.
for what you do. If you don't love it, if you don't come home, and if you don't have your own lab set up, if you never used Linux, if you don't want to learn, if you don't care for command line, if you don't, if all that doesn't excite you, I would seriously not recommend it then. Because if you want to do technical stuff side of cybersecurity, that is where you will live. Obviously, that's not the only aspect of cybersecurity, as you know. So, but one stays the true constant across all everything I'm saying is that if you have to love it, basically, you have to love it.
Completely agreed. If you love it, you'll enjoy it. For somebody who's starting or thinking, cybersecurity could be a hard market to find the right job or that position or an entry position, to put it away. Would you tell us about how you landed on your first job?
Right. Well, I can tell you what worked for me. And that's a really, really good question, actually. I got asked that a couple of times, by people and pupils, especially back in the class we were at. So I first started realizing that one of the number one issues will be being recognized. Like, why would anyone hire me? I started asking myself that, like, why am I better? Or if I am, how do my potential employers know that? So I needed to think about the complete step from my presentation, my speech, my content, just me as a person. How do I sell myself based off a sheet of paper? So I've done a lot of research. I've paid attention in class, and I've chose classes from the get-go that would enable me to do a lot of that. So like help desk papers, professional IT class paper, and so on. So just kind of understanding the email etiquette. I know it sounds arbitrary right now to both of us, but I've never sent an official work email before I started studying, right? So I didn't know, how do you greet, how do you start paragraphs, how do you put a link in. I never attached a file to an email before. So it sounds funny now, but I
But a true
had to
story.
really learn
Yeah.
all of that. Yeah, I had to, like, at 30 something years old, I had to really um focus on it to go, right, I can do this and I will not make mistakes. I will not send an email without an attachment, right? So the way I would bypass me, for example, on that is I would not put an email I'm sending it to before I've completed my email and proofread it, so that I don't accidentally click send and it's not ready. So stuff like that. But overall, um, with that sort of mindset, I started doing everything I can. So I joined LinkedIn. I looked at other professional profiles. I started looking at how they lay it out, what they put in their experience, what certificates should I be working on? Is there any open platforms that I can be attending in terms of education and classes? I joined ISACA, a student group, which I actually became a president of for a couple of years, taken over from the previous student. And as such, I went to official ISACA governance meetings in Auckland and met a lot of people in, high-powered positions, from C-suites, from like, and chief information security officers, auditors across the board. Met a lot of people, had a lot of interesting chats, put my name and my face out there, asked for advice on just constant grind. But things really kind of picked up for a final project. Things worked in the real world. I had to pick up the phone and see if I can talk to somebody in the security industry. So since our paper was about NTP DDoS attacks, and I had to recreate it and just find out how it works in the real world, I called Spark, just a standard support 0800 number for anyone, anything. Like basically New Zealand's biggest ISP,
Yep.
equivalent to like T-Mobile or O2 or EE or whatever, right? So I just called their service number, like a normal, like, hey, I want to join. So I called them and I'm like, hey, my name is Ivan. We are doing this final year project. I need to speak to someone in charge of security at DDoS, which you have also on the business pages and offer. Oh, we don't do that. I'm like, it's on your page. It's on this page. Da, da, da. The guy goes, oh, no, let me have a look. Puts me on hold and goes, right, here's the email of the person. Talk to them and see what they say. So I emailed the person. We met, all three of us, together in a cafe on Queen Street in Auckland.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the information we received was somewhat sanitized, but the word of our constant, engagement and what we were doing ended up in the basically reached the security operations center manager at Spark, Q,
Wow.
and he messaged me on LinkedIn saying he's been following what I do on LinkedIn. He heard about the meeting with the person. He'd like to meet me, which is what happened. We ended up having a coffee at the same cafe. He was interested in our work. I invited him to our final presentation, which he attended. And obviously, depending on budgets, when everything cleared, 5, 6 months after I graduated, obviously I kept looking for work. But as you know, a lot of these big companies, they have their budgets, and when they get announced, that's when they can hire, whether they get a full-time employee position available or not. And I had to wait till that happened, basically, which took 5, 6 months. And once it opened, immediately I was hired as a level 1 by Q, the Security Operations Center Manager for Spark. So
As a
that was
level
my
one, as a level one security engineer.
yes, actually,
Okay.
technically, that's correct. So yeah, that was my way in, and it took some time. It took a lot of work, and the whole time I had that in as my goal, that hiring, that getting in, that how do I stand out, right? So even down to the CV, I wasn't happy with just a regular, here's my Word document, 30-page, or everything I know in my life. Like that wasn't it. So I done research, and they said 2 pages, be concise, stand out somehow. So I found a Photoshop template online, found a person that I knew who had Photoshop, sat down, learned how to use Photoshop, since I've never used it before.
There is definitely a build up during the early university years, joining the ISACA group, taking on a leadership role, creating a LinkedIn profile to start networking with your peers, national, international, probably, researching ways to make your CV stand out, and even taking the initiative to pick up the phone and contact a potential opportunity. It's inspiring.
That's what worked for me. But I had that hiring, that job, that specific job, really, in my sights for a while. And even before then, I knew that I needed to work on being recognized and being different and standing out. And the way I've done that was besides being knowledgeable in what I talk about, I also wanted to make sure my CV stands out. So I think it took me a week to make my CV as a result of that, just to make it and to perfect it. It took another couple of weeks. But yeah, I wanted to stand out. I wanted my CV to be 2 pages maximum, references to be in the same style. I wanted it to be very organized and easily readable, and while containing old information somebody interested would need to have. So, because in my mind, I was like, that's the first thing they will see for anything from me, from all my work, my actual dedication, the level of detail will speak for itself. So that was kind of my thinking there. And I think it definitely helped.
Completely on the same page here. A CV, no doubt, is your first impression on a potential employer, so it's essential to craft it thoughtfully. Make sure to include relevant keywords and buzzwords, dedicate sufficient time to its preparation, and highlight projects you've completed, whether during university or as part of the personal achievements, which are relevant, obviously, to the position. Lack of professional experience shouldn't be a barrier. You can still create a standout CV by showcasing your skills and accomplishment effectively. At the end of the day, the ultimate goal of a CV, remember, is to get you an interview invite. So, Ivan, we've talked about how much work you've done in the beginning, how you landed on your first position, how you actually took the initiative and made a phone call to the ISP trying to make contacts. You took a leadership role in ISACA. But still, cybersecurity is a vast industry, and sometimes it's really hard to pick something or to choose something to be focusing on. So, from your experience, what do you think are the key skills for somebody to focus on to join the community?
That's an excellent question. You again, it really depends on which branch of cybersecurity you're going for. So if
Yep.
you're interested in more into the governance space, if you're looking more into audit, obviously you will not need the same skill set as you will if you want to work in a security operations center, or as a consultant, so, or a pen tester for that matter. So overall, I would say find the direction you want to work in. If you don't know what that is, dig in and find out, learn, and there's a lot of really good information you can get from ChatGPT or Copilot, which now comes on all Windows 11 machines, I understand, so it should be a quick and easy click. The suggestions that they actually come back with are not half bad at all. They categorize it for you. They tell you what the branches of cybersecurity are. If you continue just looking into it, and whatever obviously gives you that fire, the burning, whatever tickles your fancy, so to speak. If it's something that you feel passion for, I would say that's the one you follow. Right?
Yep.
There's no unimportant branch of cybersecurity. We all work on the same team towards the same goal, which is securing an environment, securing a company. Being compliant with what I would say is at least the very minimum of frameworks. Obviously, the more you do, the better. But there are limitations sometimes, and learning all of that definitely helps. It would be, in terms of skills, there would be generic skills that I can definitely say across all of those areas. Some stuff like integrity, really important. Be proud of your work, back yourself up, and never compromise yourself in your work that you do. And what I mean by that is, you may sometimes be put into situations where what you need to do to do your daily may not necessarily align with what you should do or even are allowed to do. So just know some of the laws where you live. Know what you should and shouldn't do. So like obviously GDPR is a good one. Yeah, always back yourself up. Always know where you want to go, and the how will happen after that, and the skills will follow as well. So let's take pen testing route, for example. So if you want to be a pen tester, then you obviously know you'll be working with technical people and in technical environments, so you will need technical skills. There's many different areas that you can focus on, and they may, to a point, all require similar understanding and knowledge, but there will be very specific areas. Eventually, everyone will get to a point of a subject matter expert if they continue pursuing that career goal, and that's where that little fine differences will happen in your understanding versus the person next to you, as well as a skill set. So I hope I answered your question there.
Yeah, there is no right or wrong answer here. This is an open question, really, based on your opinion and what you've been through. Um, and it is true, it is a fair point to say an early stage where you are exploring what path excites you the most and identifying, the skills that you will need and you're going to start developing then, looking at what your day-to-day might be looking like. Um, and this is where probably you start investing a little bit of your own time. Speaking of education, you already have a bachelor's degree in computer science, which provides a strong formal foundation. However, these days, many emerging talents are focusing on certifications to enhance their qualifications in the education space. Are there any certifications you would recommend?
Oh, absolutely. Like even no certificates may get you a job. I don't personally think certificates necessarily reflect one's understanding of what they're doing. It shows dedication, same like I suppose our degrees, right? Um,
Yes.
shows that you can continuously do something for a lengthy period of time, such as show up on time for class, do well, complete projects, present papers, do presentations, do the actual work, and obviously along the way, you learn about the subject as well. But even in the best of environments, best of universities, 3 years, even if it's 5 years, it's not it's long enough to completely understand everything. It's just not. I've been in the industry for 9 years now, and I'm still learning all the time. There's always new stuff coming up that you always have to keep up with what's happening and why is it happening and how do you protect against it and what can you do and how can you help your client or the industry or the company you work for. So there's just so many certificates out there. But if I was to choose some that I guess that immediately would kind of show that dedication, that integrity,
Yes.
There are some that are really expensive, like Sands ones. So that's probably going to be maybe not reachable for everyone to complete from before they actually start work or without work sponsoring such education. But certified ethical hacker is a good one to start with, for example, or Security Plus.
Okay.
In my opinion, there's a lot of online learnings as well that are open and you can attend. I think you can even do like night classes. A lot of universities will also do like diplomas or certificates in specific areas. I think a lot of big brand vendors also do them, that you can attend directly with them. However, personally, I'm always a bit wary of doing any sort of vendor specific certificates unless it's absolutely required for my work. Because they're very focused on the product. They're very focused on what that product can do, and that's what they teach you. So I feel like that's once you are at work and you need it to be better at what you do. But in terms of generically understanding cybersecurity and finding work, your first job, I would say just practice, 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 and just know how it all works. Talk to me, talk to you, talk to anybody else in the industry. What does it actually look like? What does security look like? What's the tech stack that you need? Learn the tech stack yourself. You can install Splunk for free on your machine. You get 500 megabytes of logs for that you can use for free.
Yeah, Splunk, one of the most popular themes in the
That's
market
right.
for a while now. Yeah, true.
Yeah. So, then you learn, oh, I need a router or a router. Is that allows log forwarding. So you learn about all that. So I need log forwarding. How do I forward logs? Oh, port 514, blah, blah, blah. And it just naturally cascades into your learning technical stuff that you didn't think you would. All these problems you will find along the way. Oh, I want to install security on it now, or I want to compile snort from the source code because I want to use multi-threading the way I want it. I don't want to use that feature or this feature because I don't have a really high-end CPU and I need to utilize all the power to come close to, say, line speed on the network so I can, so I don't lose any of the speed or drop any packets, etc., etc., etc. So all the stuff that you learn, what you call troubles or issues while you're learning, are actually how you learn. So go out there, give yourself a task, and learn. The more issues you encounter, the better, because then you have to solve them and more you will learn.
True, true. So you mentioned you've been in the industry for 9 years now, almost 10, and you've likely worked on many exciting projects during the time. Without, sharing too many details, but in a high level, would you be able to share some of those interesting projects that you've been involved with?
Hmm. That's an interesting question, and let me try and explain this without naming anything or saying anything that will clearly point a finger at
Yeah.
a company or alike. Honestly, most of the projects I work on I found interesting. I really do. And even daily BAU, whatever that is, because if you have a good grasp, a good understanding of what is it that you're doing, why you're doing it, you understand the weight of not doing it, or the amount of problems that can introduce, and the severity of risk that's introduced by not doing the daily BAU. And that, I suppose, brings me to the quality of it, the daily BAU. So, a very interesting project I worked on was exactly about that, actually. It's about how do you get your basics right, how that daily BAU, which, we may consider mundane, or I just have to check this or check that or check this email. Maybe some stuff we don't even think about. How is it that is so important? And there was a comparison that I used with the group of people I worked with, and I said, look, you could have the most amazing house, the big house on top. You can have all the features, all the speakers, all the TVs, the barbecue, the pool and everything. But if the base of it that holds the house isn't good enough, it can all come crashing down. And that's the analogy I will always use, because, for example, you can't protect what you don't know, or more specifically, that you don't know you have. And you'll find that in security, a lot of it stems from, besides obviously the policies and educational pieces, and being supported by the business and having the plan and a roadmap, is asset management. You need to know what you've got in order to know how to protect it. And I don't mean just physically. So if you know your servers are here, and these are your domains, and these are your switches and routers and whatnot, and these are your endpoint devices, and then you have categories of what, that's when the really important stuff comes in. So if you being able to quickly identify that, say, these servers contain PII, and therefore any sort of critical and high level alerts on these are immediately just like a red button sort of a thing, right? Assuming that your alerts are tuned, etc., etc. So there shouldn't be any guesswork really for those. There should be clear cut, everyone in the room type thing. So that was really interesting for me, because I worked on basics, or helped with the basics that in the end didn't turn out to be so basic, because of the level of complexity required to bring it up to that good standard. And I think it's actually still in progress, actually, 2 years,
Wow.
because of the size and the complexity of the environment.
Of the environment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So would you say the goal for this project was having the visibility required?
Yeah. So I would basically talk to everyone, look at the pain points, try and align it with where we're trying to be with the project, and then I would present my findings and suggestions that would work with teams to, get the information, get these questions answered, so that obviously in the end, when the audit happens, we are compliant.
Yep.
That's just a part of it, obviously. We're also secure, which is more important. I think never just, this is my 2 cents here, never just go with minimum compliance. That's the bare minimum. But yeah, getting the basics right will set you up really well to really do good security moving on. So good cadence, transparent conversations, share that data, between teams, between companies or partners or third parties, obviously all within the scope and within the need to know.
Yeah.
Definitely stuff that a lot of people and companies, I think, maybe even take for granted. I have seen how just a change in frequency of meetings has dramatically improved the understanding, the scope, and the quality of work, as well as the outcome in the end. Just a change of
Yeah.
communication style.
Yeah, totally. I mean, cybersecurity is not one person job, it's a teamwork.
Yeah,
And I don't literally isolate the security team. It's a teamwork, meaning the whole company from finance to marketing, you know, um, to the executive themselves. So everybody should be security awareness. This is where security awareness kicks in.
yeah.
Um, so how do you stay up to date with the constantly evolving cybersecurity scape? How do you keep yourself updated?
Oh, well, in the beginning, I used to go and look for news. I mean, sometimes I still do that if it's something really interesting, like drilling down deep into how a specific attack works. But I've basically signed up to a lot of the newsletters and a lot of platforms, and I use Telegram to send me the latest updates on specific attacks or whatever's happening. Email is another one as well. I read quite a lot. I get through my email, and every now and then, like I said, something really interesting pops up. So for those of you that don't know, any run or any .run website is an online sandbox that automatically runs or can automatically run a lot of the unknown executables, and it presents it to you in real time. It opens a little window and you can see all the processes of network communication, and it actually categorizes all the steps according to MITRE attack framework. So all the TTPs are immediately known, and it's really good to have that approach because you can see it in real time for a specific attack, and you can start basically almost immediately developing detections on key steps of the malware that is either different from the previous version or whatever they are if it's brand new. But I just love that they actually send you out a newsletter saying, hey, we detected this, and this is the link to it being detected in our environment. That's how it works. And you just, immediately have the insights. Similar is with hybrid analysis, virus total, all of them. You might need some accounts. They're free, but
Yep.
yeah, highly recommended. Make sure the system works for you, not you having to go and get the system every time, unless it's like something specific.
But so being in industry again for such a long time, and you've took a bunch of other challenging roles, and you are a technical person. You also been leading a team. So as of today, organizations are facing a growing number of cybersecurity challenges. What do you think are the top issues that cybersecurity professionals are trying to address right now?
Hmm. From what I'm seeing, that's a really good question, by the way. Obviously, there's the number one I said shared, and it's kind of in between the increasing and most better AI and being continuously and more used by everyone from advanced um, attackers all the way down to script kiddies to just the sheer amount of new attacks that come out daily. The numbers are crazy. I don't have the stats, but I read somewhere recently that it's in hundreds of thousands weekly. It's in millions basically, because all you need is like a really good thing that's already out there, and then you can change it slightly, add specific steps, to fine tune it, to avoid more detection, more obfuscation, etc., or different kind of obfuscation. Um, Yeah, the sheer numbers of attacks, groups out there, the malicious intent, as well as the cunningness and of the delivery methods, etc. Yeah, it's all getting a quite interesting. Yeah, recently I heard about this attack that you can bypass MFA on a lot of the platforms, and the way they deliver it is quite intriguing. I'm not going to go into the technical details now, but yeah, there's a lot of innovation in that space. And let's not forget, I think there's a lot more attackers than there is defenders, which
Do
is
you
where
think so?
I would say so. Yeah, I think
Okay.
we underestimate the sheer amount. And when I say attackers, I don't mean just the actual people. If you have a bot online doing the work you set it to do, that's an attacker. It's an eight, like it's a point of attack. So you definitely presents a threat, and as long
Yep.
as it's there, whether if it's manned or not, it's a point of attack. That's how I see it.
That's really interesting, and I appreciate your perspective. You also mentioned the buzzword AI, which is playing a significant role in cybersecurity today. I recall that in its early days, AI was being used primarily by the black hackers to create more sophisticated and complex attacks in a very remarkably short amount of time as well. And this presented a huge challenge for defenders because somehow we have to catch up with that and try to stop it and contain in hopefully sooner. So AI, it's bringing a new turn to cybersecurity. What are your thoughts on AI?
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely changed the landscape in terms of accessibility at the very least. We can not sure about complexity. I still think AI isn't at the level, say, of a nation state attacks. Those are, really capable teams and people that work behind them. And yeah, the AI probably accelerates a lot of that, day-to-day mundane, specific tasks that they'll need. But I'm not sure it will be as deadly or as lethal as some of these specific 3 or 4 0-day type attacks. Yeah, not yet, at least. Watch that space.
Yeah. So, Ivan, looking ahead a bit, um, what changes do you foresee in the cybersecurity industry as in the next 5 to 10 years?
Mm. Yeah, another good question there. Honestly, quantum computing, I think, is genuinely going to change the world. And I mean it from every aspect. Recently, in Google introduced the 102 qubit or 105, I'm not sure, the new processor, and the speed at which it performs specific calculations on certain algorithms is mind blowing. This, I think, it when, and it probably will in the next 10, maybe ish years, become a little bit more mainstream than what it is now. But when it does, I think it will do for the world more than what internet did for the world. I genuinely think so, because the implications are just mind-boggling. They really are. Cybersecurity included. I think we will all have to slightly shift our understanding on just the level of the complexity, the sheer number, and the requirements to even operate in that space. Luckily, sounds like the processes will do that for us, assuming companies step up and have the capability to defend against such. There's obviously a lot of work already done in that space, especially in the encryption. So post quantum encryption is already a thing. They said that about SSL as well. So obviously, in terms of uncrackable, etc. So obviously, there's always going to have to move forward again and again and again, which they, I'm sure, will. but that just means that companies and we will have to do the same. So this is where I see cybersecurity going. I
Yep.
think that obviously AI will greatly benefit from such power, like dramatically. And I do think a lot of the work will be done by AI, and people will then have to know how to work with AI. So this is my perspective. I always think there's space for improvement and to grow. So, but I also think there's always going to be need for a person, for a human, to be involved. I don't think it's a smart idea to completely remove the human from this space or any space for that matter.
Right, right. I can't wait what AI brings, what quantum, the power that quantum is bringing. Um, yeah, we'll see, and we will keep for sure talking about this more.
Keen eye on it for sure.
Yes. So, Ivan, you know, there are some misconceptions that as a cybersecurity people we hear all the time. When we are introducing ourselves, when we hear cybersecurity in movies. But is there any misconception that you hear about cybersecurity?
Well, yeah, I suppose, because I'm always, well, not always, but quite often I'm in the circle of people who know what they're talking about, and there's really not that many misconceptions in that space because everyone obviously understands how it works. But the stuff I always laugh about, I suppose, is in movies. Just movies, I've seen some ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous stuff being presented in terms of hacking. That's their favorite, isn't it? Like, guy sits down and breaks 128-bit encryption on a CIA firewall in 30 seconds. Um, it's just, or stuff like I'll build a GUI to break a firewall. Like, that doesn't make any sense at all. So it just all helps. It's all the pop culture, movies and whatnot, definitely help contribute to the misconceptions of what hacking is and how it's done, or what it actually means. And yeah, there's a few series and movies that more truthfully present the actual task of hacking, or gaining access to a system. um, uh, Mr. Robot, or The Matrix, in fact, as well, to just name a couple. If you slow down or pause a video and read the text on the screen, you can see the command line they are actually putting in, and it's accurate
Yeah.
for what they're saying that they're doing or trying to do, while other ones just don't make sense from various reasons. Um, And obviously, if you're not in the industry, you're not going to pick up on it. But I saw a ridiculous thing on TV the other day when, like, the IPv4 addressing space was completely out of it. It started with like a 321. That's, it's immediate. You're like, what's that number? Why is it starting with a three? But yeah, and it just introduces, for a lot of people, oh, I can sit down, I can learn to hack, in whatever
Yeah. Yeah.
amount of
True.
time, and I'll do it like that, and it just doesn't work that way. So that would be one of my biggest, I think, things out there. Pop
Okay.
culture.
Those stories always put a smile on my face because what I say, some person pressing a keyboard and then boom, oh, I'm in. It's just, yeah, it's quite funny. I guess they are trying to deliver the bigger story or the bigger picture rather than, go into details. But it's always the funny part, and I believe it's entertaining for us who actually do the work and watching those. It's just puts a smile, like I said, puts a smile on our faces. With your job on the day to day, what do you think is the most rewarding thing as a cybersecurity professional?
Most rewarding. I quite like the fact that I'm there to help. I am there to continuously improve my knowledge, to continuously be the reliable go-to for a company that is sometimes presented with challenges that they potentially even never needed to before, or didn't even know it's a problem or that it's a risk. Identifying that and presenting it to them, and helping them actually navigate through that space all the way through to completion and resolution of that risk is very, very rewarding. I think that's my number one, to be honest.
helping
Yeah.
other to be protected. That's one of the most rewarding, being the guy to go to when it comes uh of double checking if it's a good link to click on, it's a good website to shop on. Yeah, it is definitely that's the human side of this career, I guess. Um,
Yeah.
no, that's great. Is there anything else that you would like to share with those who are interested in cybersecurity or looking to break into the field, perhaps?
Okay. Well, don't give up, first of all, and do your hard work. You will just you have to, whatever it is, like I mentioned earlier, whatever the branches you're trying to break into, it will require you to do some grafting. It will require you to sit down and learn in technical aspects and do quite a lot. Sit down there. You never use Linux? Fine. Doesn't matter. Sit down and learn it. Break it, reinstall it, break it again, reinstall it again, and to go on and on and on until it becomes second nature, really. It does pay out. You can't put good into something and have a bad outcome. It just doesn't work like that. So if you work towards your goal, if you focus on what you want and you clearly have already decided this is what you want and you have your goals, just work on them. It will happen. Obviously, um, I've done the same, panned out the way I almost exactly how I planned it.
Yep.
But yeah, just do it.
Don't
Simple
give
as
up, huh?
yeah. Go for it.
Great. Thank you, Ivan, so much. Thank you for being here on the show and taking this time. I'm sure that a lot of people find this helpful, and especially for those ones who wants to break in the industry. So I appreciate the kind words and all the knowledge being shared today. Thanks, Ivan.
Well, thank you, Rosario. Thank you for having me on the show.
All right, that's a wrap for today's episode. Huge thanks to Ivan Pitton for joining me and sharing his insights. I hope you all enjoyed as much as I did. And if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the next episode. Also, if you got questions or thoughts about today's discussion, I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or drop a comment in the podcast. Thanks again for tuning in to the very first episode of Cyber Stories Unlocked. I can't wait to bring you more amazing conversations. See you in the next one.